In this week's edition of A Wilder View, our wildlife correspondent Tanner Saul helps explain why grizzly bears often appear on our hiking trails.
A large grizzly bear can weigh up to 800 pounds, and for a large animal to take such steps, a lot of energy must be used to carry all that weight around. But until recently, little was known about the energy expenditures grizzlies had as they moved around their habitats.
Usually the fattest females produce the fastest growing cubs that also have the best chance of survival. Similarly, the biggest males do most of the breeding. Therefore, bear foraging and which decision they make on where to walk are probably closely tied to maximizing energy intake while minimizing energy expenditures. Researchers at Washington State University decided to measure the animals' metabolic rates as they walked in different slope types to find out how much energy they use on a daily basis, and using captive bears to measure their physiological differences. This study, published in the Journal of Experimental Biology, discovered that grizzly bears prefer to walk on shallow paths to save energy and helps explain why the animals often appear on human hiking trails. This publication combined their research with the ongoing work on grizzlies in Yellowstone, a study that has been around since the 70s. Combining measurements on both wild and captive bears allows researchers to understand the ecological context of the bears' foraging and habitat use decisions. The biologists used a treadmill that is normally designed for a horse to walk on, and trained the captive grizzly bears to walk on the equipment. As you can imagine, bears don't work for free, so they fed them their favorite treats while they were exercising on the treadmill. If they were studying energy expenditure in humans, they would have used masks to collect respired air. But of course, grizzly bears will not wear a mask. So they encased the treadmill in a polycarbonate box and continuously pulled air through the treadmill and box. Small samples of the air were taken to determine energy expenditure. The front and back of the treadmill can be raised or lowered to help them measure the costs of bear walking on level ground and up and down hills. They also monitored the bear's heart rate with the same implanted cardiac monitors used on people, evaluating activity with Fitbit type sensors. They determined that ascending and descending slopes were quite costly for the bear's energy. They also found that grizzlies did not have a lot of energy to maintain long, high-speed chases. Grizzlies consume similar amounts of energy to climbing humans, wolves, and wild cats, in contrast to fleeing elk and deer, which use 46% less energy than grizzlies over mountainous terrain. GPS collars on the wild bears in Yellowstone showed that the bears walk at a natural speed of 0.6 meters per second, similar to that of humans. It also turned out that grizzlies tend to select flatter paths that wind along shallower gradients to save energy. Instead of tackling steep ascents and descents, the bears chose to do a lot of sidehilling. Coincidentally, the bear's preference for shallow gradients is the same as the U.S. National Park Service's recommendation for the maximum gradient of trails, which explains why they often use the same trails we hike on. In Missoula, Tanner Saul, MTN News.
And Tanner says more than likely if a bear hears you coming on a trail, they will move away, and the chances of seeing that bear are slim, at least on the trail there. I'll tell you what, watching them on the treadmill was something else there, Lewis.
Oh my goodness, by now I've seen a bear on a treadmill. I feel like I've seen it all now. That was so interesting. No, they had it hooked up. Man, learn something new every day. I love that one. Thanks for that.